The sun rose slowly over the small neighborhood, casting golden rays on the houses that lined the street like sentinels. Darius Durant, a dedicated mail carrier, began his morning route, the familiar weight of the mailbag slung over his shoulder. Each step was a dance he had mastered over the years, but today felt different. A subtle tension hung in the air, prickling at the back of his mind. As he walked, Darius exchanged greetings with the neighbors, a nod to Mrs. Jenkins tending to her roses, a wave to the children playing hopscotch on the sidewalk. But when he reached Mrs. Thompson's house, a wave of unease washed over him. The once vibrant garden was now overgrown with weeds, the flowers wilting as if they mirrored the neglect that had overtaken the home. The mailbox, usually filled with letters and postcards, stood like a silent sentinel, overflowing with uncollected mail. Darius felt a tightening in his chest. Something wasn't right. He approached the front door, knocking softly. Silence answered him. He knocked again, louder this time, a sense of urgency creeping into his movements. Darius had known Mrs. Thompson for years. She was a fixture in the community, a kind woman with a warm smile and endless stories. "Mrs. Thompson," he called, his voice echoing in the stillness. "Are you home?" The only response was the rustling of leaves in the breeze. Darius's heart raced. He knew he had to do something. Taking a step back, he surveyed the surroundings. The street was quiet, almost too quiet. The absence of life felt heavy, pressing down on him. Darius hesitated for a moment, torn between the routine of his job and the gnawing instinct that urged him to take action. With a deep breath, he turned on his heel and walked around to the side of the house. A glimpse through the window revealed a darkened living room, dust particles dancing in the shafts of light. Darius's gut twisted. This wasn't like her. Darius decided to try one more time. He knocked more firmly, the sound reverberating in his chest. "Mrs. Thompson, it's Darius. I'm worried about you." The silence was deafening. Just as he was about to leave, he heard a faint sound, soft, labored breathing. Panic surged within him. Without thinking, he pushed open the gate and made his way to the back door, praying it would be unlocked. It swung open with a creak, revealing a dimly lit kitchen. The air inside was thick with stillness, the usual sense of home replaced by an unsettling odor. Darius stepped cautiously inside, calling out once more, "Mrs. Thompson." His heart pounded as he moved further into the house. The living room was cluttered with the remnants of a once happy home, old magazines piled on the coffee table, a forgotten cup of tea congealing on the counter. And there, slumped against the couch, was Mrs. Thompson. "Mrs. Thompson." Darius rushed to her side, kneeling beside her. Her frail body was pale, her breath shallow and uneven. "Oh no, what happened?" Panic flooded his voice as he reached for her hand, feeling the coldness of her skin. Darius could feel the weight of the moment settle heavily on him. He needed to act. He fumbled for his phone, hands trembling as he dialed 911. "Please, I need an ambulance." His voice was urgent, the fear rising in his throat. After providing the necessary information, he hung up and returned to Mrs. Thompson, keeping her hand clasped in his. "Help is on the way," he promised softly, fighting against the rising tide of anxiety. "Just hold on, please." As he sat there, Darius felt a shift within himself. He had crossed a threshold, stepping beyond the role of a mere mail carrier to become someone who cared deeply. But he also felt the looming weight of judgment that might come from others in the community. Would they understand why he had intervened? Would they see him as overstepping? For the first time, Darius realized that in a world where silence often prevailed, taking a stand could come with its own set of challenges. But for now, he focused on Mrs. Thompson, her fragile breaths a reminder of the fragility of life, and the importance of being there for one another, even when it felt uncomfortable. As the distant sirens wailed closer, Darius squeezed her hand tighter, determined to stay by her side, no matter what came next. The blaring sirens faded into the background as paramedics rushed into Mrs. Thompson's home, their authoritative presence instantly filling the space with urgency and action. Darius felt a wave of relief wash over him as they assessed her condition, their professionalism bringing a glimmer of hope amidst the chaos. "Sir, we need you to step back," one of the paramedics instructed, gently guiding Darius aside. Darius nodded, stepping into the kitchen, heart still racing. He watched as they worked to stabilize Mrs. Thompson, their calm demeanor a stark contrast to the turmoil swirling inside him. He could barely comprehend the gravity of what had happened. Minutes later, as they wheeled Mrs. Thompson out on a stretcher, Darius caught her eye. There was a flicker of recognition, a hint of gratitude, and it struck him, he had done the right thing. "Please, take care of her," he urged the paramedics, his voice barely above a whisper. They nodded, assuring him they would do everything possible. Darius followed them outside, the chill of the autumn air hitting him as he watched the ambulance doors close. He felt a sense of helplessness wash over him, a longing to do more. As the ambulance sped away, Darius remained standing on the sidewalk, watching it disappear around the corner. It was only then that he felt the weight of his actions settle upon him. He had crossed a line, stepping beyond the boundaries of his usual routine. Would this spark further questions from the neighbors? Would they gossip about his involvement, whisper about his decision to enter Mrs. Thompson's home? His thoughts were interrupted by the sound of footsteps approaching. Turning, he found himself face to face with the newest resident of the neighborhood, a woman named Claire who had moved in just a few weeks ago. She had been friendly enough in passing, but Darius had yet to learn much about her. "Hey, Darius, is everything okay?" Claire asked, concern etched across her features. Darius hesitated, unsure of how to explain the situation without sounding alarmist. Mrs. Thompson collapsed. "I called for help. They took her to the hospital." Claire's eyes widened in shock. "Oh no. I didn't even know she was unwell." He shrugged, feeling a mix of frustration and guilt. "Neither did I. She's always been so vibrant, so full of life. I didn't know what to do." Claire stepped closer, her brow furrowing. "You did the right thing. You cared enough to check on her. That's important, especially in a neighborhood like ours." Darius appreciated her words, though a part of him still felt uneasy. "Thanks. I just hope she'll be all right." They stood in silence for a moment, the weight of the situation pressing down on them. Darius glanced at Claire, taking in her appearance, her hair pulled back in a messy bun, an oversized sweater that hinted at her comfort over fashion. There was a warmth in her presence, a genuine concern that made Darius feel a little less alone in his worries. "I've been meaning to introduce myself properly," Claire said, breaking the silence. "I'm Claire, as you might know. I just moved in last month. Still trying to get to know everyone around here." "Darius," he replied, offering a small smile. "I've lived here for a while now. If you need any help settling in, just let me know." "Thanks, I might take you up on that. It's always nice to have someone around who knows the area." Darius felt a flicker of hope, maybe getting to know Claire could help him process the day's events. Perhaps they could forge a connection that would ease the isolation he often felt in his routine. As they continued to talk, Claire's presence began to distract him from the heaviness of the moment. They discussed the little quirks of the neighborhood, shared funny anecdotes about their first impressions of various neighbors, and slowly, the tension eased. But just as Darius started to feel a sense of normalcy return, his phone buzzed in his pocket. It was a message from the neighborhood group chat, a notification that made his stomach drop. "Did you hear about Mrs. Thompson? Someone said she was taken away in an ambulance. I heard she might have had a heart attack." Darius's heart sank. The gossip had already begun. He glanced at Claire, who was oblivious to the message and the potential for drama that loomed in the neighborhood. "Yeah, I think I need to check on something," he said, suddenly feeling the urge to distance himself from the conversation. Sure, no problem, Claire replied, watching him with a look of concern. If you need anything, I'm just next door. Thanks, I appreciate it, Darius said, turning away. As he walked home, the air felt heavier than before. The neighborhood was alive with whispers, and Darius knew the gossip would only grow louder. In a place where silence often spoke louder than words, he felt the impending judgment that came with stepping outside the expected roles people assigned to one another. He thought of Mrs. Thompson, of the importance of human connection in a world that sometimes turned a blind eye. Darius understood now that being part of a community meant more than just passing by, it meant showing up, even when it was uncomfortable. That evening, as he settled into his usual routine, the weight of the day lingered. Darius knew he would need to find a way to navigate this newfound attention, to ensure that his actions weren't misconstrued or judged. He had opened a door, one that led into the depths of human connection and vulnerability, and he wasn't sure how to close it. The following morning, Darius woke to a haze of uncertainty. As he prepared for work, the message from the neighborhood chat echoed in his mind. Speculations about Mrs. Thompson's health were rampant, and he could feel the weight of the community's judgment pressing down on him. He needed to clear his head. After making himself a cup of coffee, he stepped out onto his small balcony, letting the crisp morning air fill his lungs. He glanced at Mrs. Thompson's house, which now felt shrouded in a heavy silence. It was a stark contrast to the vibrant garden she had tended for years, a symbol of life and care that was now absent. Darius tried to shake off the anxiety gnawing at him. Today was a critical day at the clinic, the new interns were starting, and he had a role in welcoming them. As a senior nurse, he had always relished the chance to mentor newcomers, guiding them through the complexities of patient care. But today, his mind was clouded with worries about the neighbors' gossip and the well-being of Mrs. Thompson. As he drove to the clinic, the familiar streets blurred past him. Memories flooded back, his childhood spent racing down these same roads, the laughter of friends echoing in his ears. He remembered how simple life had felt back then, how carefree. But those days felt like a distant echo, overshadowed by the responsibilities of adulthood and the ever-present weight of his decisions. Arriving at the clinic, Darius was greeted by the enthusiastic chatter of the new interns. Their energy was infectious, a welcome distraction from the turmoil brewing inside him. He introduced himself, making a point to smile and engage with each of them, trying to shake off the lingering shadows of doubt. "Welcome, everyone. I'm Darius, and I'll be your mentor for the next few months," he said, standing before them in the bustling break room. "You're in for a challenging but rewarding experience here. I'm excited to help you navigate through it all." He noticed one intern in particular, Amira, a young woman with bright eyes and a contagious smile. She looked eager and determined, her enthusiasm a stark reminder of why he had pursued nursing in the first place. "Thank you for having us, Darius. I can't wait to learn from you," Amira replied, her voice filled with genuine excitement. Darius felt a flicker of pride. Perhaps today could be a fresh start, a chance to focus on something positive. But as the hours passed and the day wore on, he found it increasingly difficult to shake the weight of the previous day's events. During a break, he stepped outside for some fresh air. He found himself drawn to the back of the clinic, where a small garden had been planted by the staff. As he walked among the flowers, he overheard two nurses discussing Mrs. Thompson. "Did you hear what happened?" "Darius was the one who found her," one nurse said, her tone laced with a mix of intrigue and judgment. "Really? That's so shocking. I heard she might not pull through," the other replied, her voice lowering conspiratorially. Darius felt a knot tighten in his stomach. They were talking about him, dissecting his involvement as if it were a scandal. He turned away, not wanting to engage in the gossip that seemed to be spreading like wildfire. Instead, he took a deep breath and walked back into the clinic, determined to refocus. He joined the interns in the patient care area, helping them navigate through their first patient interactions. As they laughed and learned, Darius felt the tension in his shoulders slowly begin to ease. But the respite was short-lived. As the day wound down, he received a text from Claire. "Hey, just wanted to check in. I heard about Mrs. Thompson. Are you doing okay?" Darius hesitated before responding. He appreciated her concern, but he felt exposed, like his vulnerability had become fodder for neighborhood gossip. "Thanks, I'm fine. Just a tough day," he replied, keeping it vague. A moment later, Claire texted back. "If you want to talk about it or just grab a coffee, I'm here. We're neighbors, after all." Darius felt a warmth in her offer, a flicker of hope amidst the shadows. Maybe opening up to someone who understood the complexities of the neighborhood dynamics could help him navigate through this difficult period. He thought of how Claire had stood by him the day before, how her genuine concern had been a comforting presence. Maybe it was time to lean on someone, to let someone in. "Sure, I'd like that. How about tomorrow?" he typed back, his heart racing slightly at the prospect of connecting with her more. As he hit send, a sense of relief washed over him. Perhaps forming a bond with Claire could provide a new perspective, an anchor in the tumultuous sea of judgment and gossip that seemed to swirl around him. That evening, as Darius returned home, he felt lighter than he had in days. He prepared a simple dinner, allowing himself to revel in the comforting routine. The thought of coffee with Claire filled him with anticipation, a chance to share and connect beyond the confines of their neighbors' expectations. But as he settled into his evening routine, he received another message, this time from the neighborhood chat. "Anyone else worried about Darius? He seems to be too involved in Mrs. Thompson's life. Just saying." Darius's heart sank. The whispers had evolved from concern for Mrs. Thompson to scrutinizing his character. He clenched his jaw, frustration bubbling within him. It felt unfair, the way people were so quick to judge without knowing the full story. As he sat in the quiet of his living room, he realized he had a choice to make. He could let the gossip consume him, allowing it to define who he was in this community, or he could rise above it. He would focus on what truly mattered, the connections he formed, the lives he impacted, and the compassion he extended to others. Tomorrow, with Claire, he would find a way to share his experience, to find solace in camaraderie. And maybe, just maybe, he could transform this weight of judgment into something meaningful, something that connected him to others in a deeper way. The sun peeked through Darius's window the next morning, casting warm rays across his kitchen. Today felt different, a blend of anticipation and nervousness bubbled within him as he prepared for his coffee date with Claire. He dressed carefully, opting for a casual yet put-together look. The previous day's whispers still lingered in his mind, but he was determined not to let them overshadow his intention of connecting with Claire. She had shown him kindness in a way that felt rare amidst the chaos of community judgment. He arrived at the local coffee shop, a cozy place with rustic decor and the scent of freshly brewed coffee wafting through the air. The walls were adorned with local art, creating a warm and inviting atmosphere. Darius took a deep breath, hoping the comfort of the place would ease his anxieties. As he stepped inside, he spotted Claire at a small table near the window. She smiled brightly, her expression a mix of relief and happiness at seeing him. "Hey, Darius. I'm glad you could make it," she said, gesturing for him to join her. "Thanks for inviting me." "It's nice to get out for a bit," he replied, settling into the chair across from her. They ordered their coffees, Claire choosing a caramel latte while Darius went for a classic black. As they waited, the conversation flowed easily. They discussed everything from their favorite local spots to their shared passion for healthcare. "I've always admired how you seem to connect with patients," Claire said, her gaze steady and sincere. "It's a rare gift." Darius felt a blush creeping up his cheeks. "Thanks, but it's just about being present and listening. Everyone has a story, you know." Claire nodded, her eyes sparkling with understanding. "Absolutely. I think that's what makes us good at what we do, our ability to empathize and connect." As their coffees arrived, Darius felt a warmth spreading through him, not just from the caffeine, but from the connection he felt with Claire. The conversation shifted to more personal topics, and he found himself sharing snippets of his life, his childhood memories intertwined with his journey into nursing. "Sometimes, I wonder if I'm doing enough," he confessed, his voice softening. "Especially with everything going on in our neighborhood. I can't shake the feeling that I'm being watched, judged." Claire leaned in, her expression thoughtful. "I understand. People can be quick to make assumptions. But what matters is your intent and the care you provide. You know your heart." Her words resonated deeply with Darius. He had been so consumed by the neighborhood's gossip that he had lost sight of his purpose. "Thank you, Claire. It's refreshing to talk to someone who gets it," he said, a genuine smile breaking across his face. Just then, Claire's phone buzzed on the table. She glanced at the screen, her expression shifting slightly. "Sorry, it's my brother. He tends to text at the most inconvenient times." "Of course, go ahead," Darius said, sipping his coffee as he watched her. Claire quickly typed a response and then looked back up at him, a hint of frustration lingering in her eyes. "He's just having a rough time with work, and it's hard for me to be there for him when I'm trying to navigate my own stuff." Darius understood that feeling all too well. It's tough when we feel pulled in different directions. We want to help those we care about but can't always carry their burdens. "Exactly. It's like trying to balance a million things at once," she replied, her tone lightening. "But I guess we do what we can, right?" Darius nodded. "One step at a time. That's how I approach my patients. I can't fix everything, but I can be there for them in the moment." Their conversation deepened as they shared their struggles and victories in their respective roles. Darius found comfort in Claire's honesty. It was refreshing to connect with someone who understood the complexities of life without judgment. Eventually, the coffee shop began to fill with more patrons, the chatter and laughter creating a warm buzz around them. Darius noticed Claire glancing at her watch, a hint of disappointment in her eyes. "I should probably get going soon. I have a few things to wrap up before my shift," she said, her voice tinged with reluctance. "Me too," Darius replied, feeling a pang of disappointment as well. The conversation had felt effortless, a reprieve from the weight of the world outside. "Let's do this again sometime," Claire suggested, her smile brightening the room. "I really enjoyed it." "Definitely. I'd like that," Darius said, feeling a flicker of hope spark within him. As they stood to leave, Darius hesitated, suddenly feeling the need to be open with her. "Hey, Claire, about Mrs. Thompson. I don't want you to think I'm some sort of hero. I just happened to be in the right place at the right time." Claire's expression softened. "I don't see you that way. You're a nurse who cares deeply. That's enough." Her words wrapped around him like a comforting blanket. "Thanks for saying that. It's just been a lot lately." As they walked out of the coffee shop together, the morning sun greeted them, illuminating their path. Darius felt a renewed sense of purpose as they exchanged a lingering look, something unspoken passing between them. "Take care, Darius. See you around," Claire said, her smile genuine and warm. "See you, Claire," he replied, feeling a swell of gratitude. As he headed home, the neighborhood felt a little less heavy. The whispers of judgment lingered, but they no longer held the same power over him. He had shared a piece of himself with Claire, and it had been liberating. Perhaps, he thought, he could transform the fear of scrutiny into strength, using it to forge deeper connections in his community. With every step he took, he felt lighter, more equipped to face whatever lay ahead. The following week unfolded with a flurry of emotions for Darius. His morning coffee date with Claire had lingered in his thoughts, igniting a spark of hope amidst the shadows of uncertainty that had clouded his recent days. Every interaction he had since felt somehow lighter, more meaningful. He was beginning to realize that genuine connections could drown out the noise of judgment and prejudice that had been weighing on him. Back at the hospital, the atmosphere was charged with a sense of urgency. A new wave of patients had arrived, many of whom were facing challenges that mirrored the complexities Darius had experienced in his own life. As he moved through the ward, he found himself reflecting on his conversations with Claire, her words echoing in his mind like a soothing balm. Just be present, he reminded himself as he entered the room of Mrs. Thompson, who was now recovering well after her heart surgery. "Good morning, Mrs. Thompson. How are you feeling today?" Darius asked, his voice infused with warmth. "Oh, Darius, my dear. I'm feeling like a new woman. I was just dreaming of all the pies I'll bake once I'm home," she replied, her eyes twinkling with mischief. Darius chuckled, feeling a wave of relief wash over him. "Just make sure you save a slice for me, okay?" As they talked, he noticed the lightness in Mrs. Thompson's spirit and felt a growing determination to nurture that hope in others. It was during this moment that he resolved to dedicate more time to his patients, to truly see them beyond their diagnoses. He had the power to be a source of strength and comfort in their lives, just as Claire had been for him. Later that day, during a brief break in the staff room, Darius and his colleague, Maya, sat together with their coffees, discussing the influx of patients. Maya had always been a fierce advocate for diversity and inclusivity within the hospital, and her passion for creating a supportive environment resonated with Darius. "I can't believe how many people are struggling right now," Maya said, her brow furrowing in concern. "It's like a tidal wave, and we're all trying to keep our heads above water." "I know what you mean," Darius replied, stirring his coffee absently. "But it's also a reminder of how important our roles are. We need to be there for them, not just as caregivers but as people who understand their struggles." "Exactly. But you know how some of our colleagues can be. They don't see the whole picture," Maya said, her voice filled with frustration. "It's so disheartening when you hear the whispers in the break room, like they're judging our patients for their situations." Darius felt a pang of recognition. He had been caught in that whirlwind of gossip himself, feeling the weight of others' perceptions. "We have to change that narrative, Maya. We have to show them that our patients are more than just their conditions." Maya nodded, her eyes lighting up. "Let's do it. We could start by organizing a community health fair. It could be a way to reach out and connect with the neighborhood in a positive way." "That's a great idea," Darius replied, excitement bubbling within him. "We could offer free screenings, workshops on healthy living, and maybe even invite local businesses to participate." As they brainstormed, the ideas flowed easily, igniting a fire of inspiration. Darius felt a renewed sense of purpose as he imagined the potential impact they could have on the community. This was the kind of connection he had been craving, not just with Claire, but with everyone who walked through the hospital doors. The next few days were a whirlwind of planning and collaboration. Darius and Maya rallied the support of their colleagues, reaching out to local businesses, health organizations, and community leaders. The response was overwhelmingly positive, and the momentum was palpable. One afternoon, while preparing flyers for the health fair, Darius received a text from Claire. His heart raced with anticipation as he opened the message. "Hey Darius. I heard about the health fair. Sounds amazing. Can I help out?" He quickly replied, feeling a rush of excitement. "Of course. We could use all the hands we can get. It would be great to have you on board." As the date of the health fair approached, the atmosphere in the hospital shifted. Colleagues were buzzing with excitement, and patients began to share their hopes for the event. Darius felt a renewed sense of belonging, each interaction reinforcing his commitment to the community. Finally, the day of the health fair arrived. The sun shone brightly, casting a golden hue over the park where the event was held. Darius arrived early, helping set up tents and booths with Maya and other volunteers. The air was filled with laughter and chatter as families began to trickle in, drawn by the promise of free health services and fun activities. "Look at all these people," Maya exclaimed, her face beaming with joy. "This is incredible. Darius nodded, his heart swelling with pride. We did this together. It feels good to be part of something bigger. As the day progressed, Darius found himself moving from booth to booth, interacting with families and listening to their stories. Each conversation reinforced his belief in the power of connection. He saw firsthand how much people craved understanding, compassion, and support. When he spotted Claire at the booth for nutrition workshops, he felt a rush of happiness. She was engaging with attendees, her laughter infectious as she demonstrated healthy cooking tips. Darius made his way over, his heart light with anticipation. "Hey! You're amazing with the crowd," he said, grinning as he joined her. Claire turned, her face lighting up at his presence. "Thanks. I'm having a blast. It's great to see so many people out here." Together, they moved through the crowd, exchanging smiles and conversations with attendees. Darius noticed the way Claire's eyes sparkled with enthusiasm. It was infectious, drawing people in. As they laughed and shared stories, he felt a deepening connection, one that went beyond the surface. As the sun began to set, casting a warm glow over the park, Darius and Claire found a quiet moment away from the bustling crowd. "This was such a success, Darius. I can't believe how many lives we touched today," Claire said, her voice filled with wonder. "Yeah, it feels incredible to be part of something that matters," he replied, his heart racing as he looked into her eyes. They stood in comfortable silence for a moment, the warmth of the day lingering in the air. Darius felt a rush of vulnerability and decided to seize the moment. "I wanted to thank you, Claire. You've inspired me to step out of my shell and really connect with the community." "Darius, it's easy to be inspired by someone who cares as much as you do," she replied, her voice softening. "You have a gift for making people feel seen." Before he could respond, they were interrupted by a group of children running past, laughter echoing in the air. It broke the moment, but the connection between them remained, charged with unspoken words. As the event wound down and volunteers began to pack up, Darius felt a surge of gratitude. The health fair had been a turning point, not just for the community but for himself. He was reminded that together, they could combat the judgment that had once felt so suffocating. As they gathered their things, Claire leaned closer. "Let's keep this momentum going, okay? We can plan more events like this together." "I'd love that," Darius said, his heart racing at the thought of continuing their partnership. "Great. I'll text you, and we can start brainstorming," Claire replied, her smile radiant as they walked toward their cars. "Looking forward to it," Darius said, a sense of hope filling him as they parted ways. Driving home, he felt lighter than he had in weeks. The whispers of doubt were drowned out by the resounding echoes of laughter and connection. With every mile he drove, he recognized that he was not alone in his struggles. Together, they could create a ripple effect of change, fostering a community grounded in empathy and understanding. As he entered his home, Darius reflected on the shifting tides of his life. The challenges were far from over, but he felt empowered to face them head-on. With Claire by his side, he knew he could navigate the uncertainties and emerge stronger, ready to make a difference, one connection at a time. In the days following the health fair, Darius felt an invigorating shift in his perspective. The warmth of shared laughter and the sense of community had rekindled his passion for nursing, and he found himself more eager than ever to face the challenges that lay ahead. The event had fostered connections not just with patients and families, but also with his colleagues, particularly Claire, who had become an unexpected ally and friend. One crisp morning, as Darius prepared for his shift, he received a text from Claire. "Hey, can we grab coffee before work? I have something I want to discuss." Curiosity piqued, Darius quickly replied. "Sure. I'll meet you at our usual spot." As he arrived at the cafe, he spotted Claire already seated, her notebook open, a pen poised in her hand. She looked up and smiled, her excitement infectious. "Hey, Darius. I'm glad you could make it," she said, her eyes sparkling. I've been thinking about how we can build on the success of the health fair. Darius sat down, intrigued. What do you have in mind? Claire took a sip of her coffee, her expression turning serious. I want to start a support group for our patients, particularly those who've been affected by discrimination. We can create a safe space for them to share their stories and feel heard. Darius felt a mix of admiration and apprehension. That's a brilliant idea, but do you think patients will be open to it? Sharing personal experiences can be daunting. I believe they will be if we approach it the right way, Claire replied, her voice filled with conviction. We can frame it as a community-building initiative, emphasizing healing and empowerment. Darius nodded, contemplating the weight of her words. I love the idea of empowering patients, but we also need to be sensitive. Not everyone will want to share their experiences, especially if they've faced trauma. Absolutely. We can make participation optional and emphasize confidentiality, Claire said, leaning forward earnestly. I think it could really help those who feel isolated and marginalized. And we could invite guest speakers, community leaders or advocates who've faced similar challenges. Darius felt a surge of inspiration as he envisioned the potential impact. That could really foster a sense of belonging. I'm in. Let's do this together. As they continued brainstorming, the excitement between them grew. They crafted plans for the group, outlining potential topics for discussion, activities, and how to promote it within the hospital and community. Each idea sparked further dialogue, illuminating their shared commitment to addressing the pressing issues they had witnessed firsthand. The following week, they launched their first support group session, carefully selecting a cozy, inviting room at the hospital. Darius felt a blend of nerves and anticipation as they set up chairs in a circle, creating an atmosphere of openness and comfort. I can't believe we're finally doing this, Claire said, adjusting the decor, a few colorful posters that promoted kindness and resilience. Let's hope we get a good turnout. As the clock ticked closer to the start time, Darius glanced at the empty chairs, hoping that patients would feel inspired to join. He wanted to create a space where they could share their truths, but uncertainty gnawed at him. Just as the session was about to begin, a small group of patients entered the room, cautiously taking their seats. Darius felt a wave of relief mixed with excitement. They were here, ready to engage. Welcome, everyone, Darius began, his voice steady yet warm. We're really glad you could join us today. This is a space for you to share your experiences, support each other, and feel heard. Claire took the lead, introducing herself and Darius, and explaining the purpose of the group. We understand that talking about personal experiences can be difficult, but we want you to know that you're not alone. This is a safe space, and participation is entirely voluntary. As they opened the floor for introductions, the patients began to share their names and a bit about themselves. Darius felt a sense of camaraderie forming as they exchanged nervous smiles and tentative words. One woman, Sarah, shared her story of facing discrimination while seeking employment after a long illness. It was like no one saw me beyond my medical history. I felt invisible, like I didn't matter, she said, her voice trembling. Darius felt a deep pang of empathy for her. Thank you for sharing, Sarah. It's so important for us to recognize that everyone has their own struggles, and your experience matters. Encouraged by Sarah's vulnerability, others began to share their stories, each one echoing a similar theme of isolation and struggle. As they spoke, Darius and Claire listened intently, offering support and validation. Darius realized that this was not just about sharing pain, it was about fostering connections that could lead to healing. After the session, Darius and Claire gathered feedback from the participants. Many expressed gratitude for the opportunity to share their experiences and connect with others who understood their struggles. This was incredible, Claire said, her face lit up with joy. I can't believe how open everyone was. It feels like we've started something truly meaningful. Darius nodded, his heart swelling with hope. I think we can make a real difference. Let's keep this going and continue to create spaces like this. As they cleaned up, Darius felt a renewed sense of purpose. This was the work he had been longing to do, impacting lives beyond the walls of the hospital. With Claire by his side, he felt empowered to confront the challenges that lay ahead. In the weeks that followed, the support group blossomed. Each session saw new faces, and the camaraderie between participants deepened. Darius and Claire began to see the group as more than just a support mechanism, it was a community united in shared experiences and resilience. One evening, as they wrapped up a particularly impactful session, Claire approached Darius with an idea. "I was thinking we should invite a guest speaker to share their story. Someone who can inspire our group and highlight the importance of advocacy." "Absolutely. I know a few people in the community who would be perfect," Darius replied, feeling a rush of excitement. "We could also provide resources for those interested in advocacy work." As they collaborated on the next steps, Darius felt an unspoken connection with Claire growing deeper. Their shared passion for making a difference had created a bond that transcended professional camaraderie. One evening, as they left the hospital together, Darius took a deep breath, feeling the cool night air envelop him. "Claire, can I ask you something?" he said, his voice hesitant. "Of course." "What's on your mind?" she replied, her gaze steady and encouraging. "I've really enjoyed working with you on this initiative, and I feel like we've built something special together. Would you want to continue this journey beyond the hospital?" He felt vulnerable, but he knew it was time to express what had been brewing in his heart. Claire paused, her expression thoughtful. "I'd love that, Darius. I've enjoyed every moment, and I think we could do even more together." They stood in the dim light of the hospital parking lot, the weight of their words hanging between them. Darius felt a rush of relief mixed with excitement, knowing that this was just the beginning of a partnership rooted in shared values and aspirations. As they parted ways that evening, Darius felt a sense of clarity. The tides were shifting in his life, and with Claire by his side, he was ready to unveil the truths of their journey together. The weeks passed in a blur of activity, anticipation, and profound connections. Darius and Claire had invited several guest speakers to their support group sessions, each one sharing stories of resilience and strength. Their impact on the patients was palpable, the room often filled with tears, laughter, and the shared understanding that they were not alone in their struggles. One evening, Darius found himself reflecting on the changes within the group as he prepared for a session featuring a local civil rights advocate, Jordan Lee. Jordan's presence was highly anticipated, and Darius was eager to see how his story would resonate with the participants. As he arrived at the hospital, he spotted Claire in the community room, adjusting chairs and preparing materials. "Hey, Claire. Are you excited about tonight?" Darius asked, his enthusiasm bubbling over. "Absolutely. I think Jordan's story will really touch everyone. He has an incredible way of connecting with people," Claire replied, her eyes sparkling with anticipation. "And I love that he's willing to talk about the intersection of healthcare and discrimination. It's so important." As the session began, the room quickly filled with familiar faces and newcomers eager to hear Jordan's insights. Darius could feel the energy shift as Jordan entered, a tall man with a commanding presence and a warm smile. He greeted the group and began sharing his own experiences, weaving tales of overcoming barriers, advocating for change, and the power of community. "Discrimination can leave scars, but it can also ignite a fire within us," Jordan said, his voice steady and inspiring. "Every story shared here tonight is a thread in a larger tapestry of resilience. Together, we can weave a narrative that fights against injustice." Darius watched as the participants leaned in, captivated by Jordan's words. The room felt charged with an unspoken promise: this was a safe haven for vulnerability and strength. After Jordan finished speaking, he opened the floor for questions, inviting deeper discussions. One participant, a young man named Malik, raised his hand. "How do we go about advocating for ourselves in situations where we feel unheard or invisible?" Jordan nodded, acknowledging the question's weight. "It starts with your voice. Speak up, whether it's in a meeting, with your healthcare provider, or in the workplace. Share your experiences, there's power in your story. And remember, advocacy can also be about supporting one another. It's about lifting each other up. Darius felt a surge of pride as he watched the group engage with Jordan, discussing practical strategies for self-advocacy. The dialogue flowed, becoming a vibrant exchange of ideas, experiences, and hopes. Darius felt a deep sense of belonging, realizing that this was the kind of work he had always dreamed of doing. After the session concluded, Darius and Claire approached Jordan to thank him for his inspiring talk. "You really made an impact tonight," Claire said, her face aglow with enthusiasm. "I can see it in the way the participants were responding." "Thank you. It's crucial to have these conversations," Jordan replied, a warm smile spreading across his face. "Keep pushing for this group. You're doing meaningful work here." As they chatted, Darius felt a spark of inspiration. "Jordan, would you be open to collaborating on a workshop series? We'd love to provide more resources and tools for our participants." "Absolutely. I'd be honored to help. Let's connect soon to brainstorm ideas," Jordan said, enthusiasm evident in his voice. As Darius and Claire left the community room that night, a sense of accomplishment filled the air. They had built a bridge, a connection that not only supported the participants but also linked them to the broader community. Over the next few weeks, the group blossomed even further. Darius and Claire organized workshops led by Jordan, focusing on advocacy, self-care, and building resilience. Participants learned how to navigate healthcare systems, voice their needs, and understand their rights. Each session fostered deeper connections among attendees, and Darius witnessed the group transform into a true support network. However, as the initiative thrived, Darius began to feel a sense of unease. He was proud of the progress they had made, but he couldn't shake the feeling that there were still significant challenges ahead. Discrimination and bias within the healthcare system were deeply entrenched, and he knew that their work, while impactful, was just a small piece of a larger puzzle. One evening, after a particularly powerful workshop, Darius confided in Claire. "I'm really proud of what we've accomplished, but I can't help but feel overwhelmed. There's so much more to do, and I worry we're only scratching the surface." Claire placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "I feel it too, Darius. But we're building momentum. Each story shared, each connection made, creates ripples of change. We can't fix everything overnight, but we're making a difference one step at a time." "I know," Darius said, taking a deep breath. "But I think we need to think bigger. We should advocate for systemic changes, raise awareness about the issues our participants face in their daily lives, not just in the hospital." Claire nodded thoughtfully. "You're right. We should consider hosting an awareness event, invite community leaders, stakeholders, and the media to bring attention to these issues." Darius felt a rush of excitement at the idea. "Yes. Let's showcase the stories from our group, highlight the systemic barriers, and call for change. We could even collaborate with Jordan to ensure our message is impactful." With renewed determination, Darius and Claire began planning the event. They reached out to local organizations, gathered stories from participants, and worked tirelessly to create a platform that could amplify their voices. The goal was not just to share their experiences, but to challenge the status quo and advocate for a healthcare system that embraced equity and inclusion. As the event date approached, Darius felt a mix of anxiety and excitement. They had garnered attention from local media, and the turnout was expected to be significant. On the day of the event, he stood at the entrance of the community center, anxiously greeting attendees as they arrived. Claire joined him, a radiant smile on her face. "We did it, Darius. Look at all these people." As the room filled with community members, healthcare professionals, and advocates, Darius felt a surge of hope. This was their moment to shine, a chance to elevate the voices of those who had been marginalized and overlooked. The event began with heartfelt speeches from participants, sharing their stories of resilience and hope. Darius felt a swell of pride as he listened to them speak, their voices echoing with strength. When it was his turn, he took a deep breath, stepping up to the podium. "Thank you all for being here today," Darius began, his heart racing. "This event is not just about sharing stories, it's about igniting change. We must challenge the biases that exist in our healthcare system and advocate for a future where everyone feels seen, heard, and valued." The room erupted in applause, and Darius felt the energy shift. Together, they were building bridges of understanding, paving the way for a more inclusive future. As the event unfolded, the atmosphere transformed into one of solidarity and determination. After the speeches, Jordan facilitated a panel discussion, engaging attendees in a dialogue about actionable steps they could take to advocate for change. Darius looked around, witnessing the passion igniting in the eyes of participants. They were no longer just sharing stories, they were becoming advocates for their communities. As the evening drew to a close, Darius and Claire stood together, exhausted but exhilarated. "We did it, Claire," Darius said, a smile spreading across his face. "This was more than I ever imagined." Claire nodded, her eyes shining with pride. "We've created something beautiful here. This is just the beginning." Darius felt a renewed sense of purpose. Together, they had sparked a movement, one that would continue to grow and inspire others. As he looked around at the connections formed and the stories shared, he knew that they were building not just a support network, but a legacy of change. The momentum from the awareness event had created ripples throughout the community. News outlets covered the stories shared, highlighting the challenges many faced within the healthcare system due to discrimination. Darius and Claire were flooded with messages of support and inquiries from local organizations eager to collaborate. It felt like they were on the cusp of something bigger than themselves, but beneath the excitement, Darius sensed an undercurrent of anxiety. One afternoon, as they prepared for their regular support group meeting, Darius found himself staring out the window, lost in thought. Claire walked in, noticing his distracted demeanor. "Hey, you okay?" she asked, concern etched on her face. "Yeah, just thinking about everything that's happened lately. I feel like we've opened Pandora's box, and now there are so many layers to peel back," Darius replied, his brow furrowed. Claire nodded, her expression serious. "I get that. We've created a space where people are willing to share their experiences, but that also means we need to be prepared for the heavy stuff. Some stories might be hard to hear." "Exactly. I'm worried about the unspoken things, the traumas that people carry but might not be ready to share. How do we support them through that?" Darius said, his voice tinged with uncertainty. Claire placed a reassuring hand on his arm. "We take it one step at a time. We create a safe environment where they know it's okay to share, but we don't force anything. We just let them know we're here for them." As the group began to gather, Darius and Claire prepared themselves for what lay ahead. They had invited a therapist to lead the session, someone skilled in trauma-informed care, hoping to provide additional support to the participants. As the room filled with familiar faces, Darius felt a mixture of excitement and apprehension. The therapist, Dr. Malik Rivers, introduced himself and spoke about the importance of creating a safe space for sharing. "Today, we're going to explore not just the stories that are easy to tell, but also the ones that sit heavy in our hearts. Remember, you are in control of your narrative. Share only what you feel comfortable sharing." Darius watched as participants began to open up. Some spoke of their day-to-day struggles, while others shared deeper pains, experiences of racism, microaggressions, and systemic barriers that had affected their lives and well-being. The atmosphere in the room shifted as vulnerabilities surfaced. It was a mix of catharsis and discomfort. One participant, a woman named Angela, hesitated before speaking up. "I want to share something that's been weighing on me for a long time. I've always been told that if I work hard enough, I'll succeed. But in reality, it feels like no matter how hard I try, I'm always held back because of the color of my skin. It's exhausting. Darius felt his heart ache for Angela. Her words echoed the sentiments of many he had encountered. "Angela, thank you for sharing that," he said softly. "It's important for us to acknowledge those feelings. You're not alone in this struggle." As the session progressed, more participants began to share their truths. The room was filled with a blend of emotions: sorrow, anger, relief, and understanding. Darius felt the weight of their stories pressing against him, but he also felt a sense of purpose. This was what they had created, a space for voices that had long been silenced. Later in the session, Dr. Rivers guided the group through a reflective exercise, encouraging participants to write down feelings they had not yet expressed. As Darius observed the silence, he could see concentration etched on their faces, each individual wrestling with their thoughts. After the writing exercise, Dr. Rivers invited anyone who felt ready to share what they had written. A young man named Leo slowly raised his hand. "I wrote about my fear of not being taken seriously. I feel like people see me as just another statistic, a young black man who's destined to fail. But I want to prove them wrong." Darius's heart raced as he listened to Leo. "That's a powerful message, Leo. Your journey is your own, and it's important that you continue to believe in yourself, regardless of others' perceptions." As the session came to a close, participants expressed gratitude for the opportunity to share their feelings. The sense of community had deepened, and Darius felt a swell of pride. They were doing the hard work of healing, but the lingering weight of unspoken traumas remained. After everyone left, Darius and Claire remained in the room, processing what had transpired. "I didn't realize how much everyone had been holding in," Claire said, her voice reflecting a mix of sadness and determination. "We need to ensure they have access to ongoing support." Darius nodded, deep in thought. "I think we should consider forming smaller support circles within our group, more intimate settings where people can share at their own pace." "I love that idea. It'll give them a chance to connect on a deeper level," Claire replied, her eyes lighting up with excitement. "We can start with a pilot circle next week and see how it goes." As they finalized plans for the smaller circles, Darius felt a sense of hope. They were making strides toward addressing the unspoken issues, providing a framework for healing and understanding. In the weeks that followed, the smaller support circles flourished. Participants shared stories of pain, loss, and resilience, but they also began to focus on healing and hope. Darius saw them supporting one another in ways he had never imagined, offering advice, sharing resources, and encouraging each other to embrace their narratives. One evening, after a particularly emotional session, Angela approached Darius. "I wanted to thank you for creating this space. It's been hard for me to talk about my experiences, but I feel like I can finally breathe." Darius felt tears prick at the corners of his eyes. "You've done the hard work, Angela. Your courage to share is what makes this group powerful." As the weeks turned into months, Darius felt a profound shift within himself as well. The stories shared by the participants echoed in his mind, shaping his understanding of his own journey. He realized that while he had been there to support others, he too had been transformed by their experiences. In one of the final sessions before the holidays, Darius decided to share a bit of his own story with the group. "I've been reflecting on my experiences as a black man in America, and I want to acknowledge the unspoken struggles I've faced too. There have been moments where I felt invisible, moments of frustration and anger. But I've learned that sharing those experiences not only helps me heal but can also empower others." The group listened intently, and Darius felt a wave of vulnerability wash over him. "I want you all to know that we're in this together. Our voices matter, and together we can create change, not just for ourselves, but for future generations." As he spoke, Darius felt the weight of his own unspoken truths lift, replaced by a shared sense of purpose. The room buzzed with affirmation, and he realized that they were not just a support group, they were a community bound by resilience, strength, and an unwavering commitment to change. As the session concluded, participants embraced, exchanging words of encouragement and gratitude. Darius felt a sense of fulfillment as he watched them support one another, a true testament to the power of shared experiences. Walking out of the community center that night, Darius turned to Claire. "I can't believe how far we've come. These circles are making a real difference." Claire smiled, her eyes gleaming with pride. "And we're just getting started. I truly believe we're creating a movement." As they stood outside in the crisp night air, Darius looked up at the stars, feeling a sense of hope for the future. Together, they had faced the unspoken and emerged stronger, ready to continue the fight for equity, understanding, and healing. The new year brought with it a renewed sense of purpose for Darius and Claire. After the success of their smaller support circles, they had garnered attention from local advocacy groups eager to collaborate. The sense of community they had built felt like a beacon of hope, illuminating the path forward in a world still riddled with challenges. In the first meeting of the year, Darius stood before the group, his heart swelling with pride. "Welcome back, everyone. I hope you all had a restful break. As we embark on this new year, I want us to reflect on the progress we've made and set intentions for what's to come." Claire added, "We've all shared so much over the past few months, and it's important that we continue to support one another. Today, we'll discuss our individual and collective goals for this year." As participants took turns sharing their resolutions, the room buzzed with excitement. Some spoke of personal growth, wanting to pursue education or career opportunities, while others expressed a desire to take on more activism in their communities. The energy was palpable, and Darius felt a deep sense of connection among the group. As the meeting progressed, the topic of community engagement emerged. One participant, Marcus, who had recently shared his experiences navigating job discrimination, spoke passionately. "I think it's important that we take our stories beyond these walls. We need to advocate for change in our workplaces, schools, and beyond. If we don't speak up, nothing will change." His words resonated with the group, igniting a spark of enthusiasm. Darius chimed in, "Marcus is right. We've built a strong foundation here, but now we need to amplify our voices. Together, we can create ripples of change in our community." After the meeting, Darius and Claire gathered in a corner to discuss the potential of hosting a community-wide event focused on raising awareness about systemic racism and healthcare disparities. They envisioned a day filled with speakers, workshops, and opportunities for attendees to share their stories. "Imagine the impact we could have if we brought in local leaders, healthcare professionals, and community members to talk about these issues openly," Claire said, her eyes shining with excitement. "We could create a platform for dialogue and healing." "I love it," Darius replied. "But we need to make sure that the voices of those most affected by these issues are at the forefront. This isn't just about raising awareness, it's about empowering our community." Over the next few weeks, Darius and Claire worked tirelessly to plan the event. They reached out to local organizations, secured a venue, and began organizing speakers. They also encouraged group members to contribute, inviting them to share their own stories as part of the program. As the date approached, anticipation grew. Darius felt a mix of excitement and anxiety as they finalized the details. He wanted to ensure that the event not only educated attendees but also fostered a sense of community and solidarity. On the day of the event, the community center was buzzing with energy. Colorful banners decorated the space, proclaiming messages of unity and resilience. As attendees trickled in, Darius could see familiar faces mingling with newcomers. He felt a sense of pride knowing that this gathering was a culmination of all the hard work and heartache they had shared. As the event began, Darius took the stage, feeling the weight of the moment. "Welcome, everyone. Thank you for being here today. We're gathered to discuss an issue that affects us all, systemic racism and its impact on healthcare. Together, we can shine a light on these challenges and work towards real change." The crowd erupted in applause, and Darius felt a surge of hope wash over him. He introduced the first speaker, a local healthcare professional who shared her experiences navigating biases within the healthcare system. As she spoke, Darius could see the audience nodding in recognition, connecting with the stories being shared. Throughout the day, various speakers took the stage. Activists, educators, and individuals from the community shared their truths. Darius was moved by the bravery displayed in each story, the raw honesty that echoed through the room. During a breakout session, Darius facilitated a discussion about actionable steps attendees could take to address racism in their own lives. The dialogue flowed freely, with participants brainstorming ideas for community initiatives, mentorship programs, and advocacy efforts. As the event drew to a close, Claire stepped up to the microphone. Thank you all for being here today and for sharing your voices. Remember, this is just the beginning. We have the power to affect change, but it starts with each of us. Let's carry these conversations forward and hold ourselves accountable. As the crowd erupted in applause, Darius felt a sense of fulfillment wash over him. They had created a space for dialogue, a place where stories could be shared and lives could be changed. After the event, Darius and Claire stood outside the community center, watching attendees mingle and exchange contact information. I can't believe how incredible today was, Claire said, her smile radiant. The energy in that room was electric. Yeah, it felt like we ignited something special, Darius replied, his heart full. This is just the beginning. We need to keep this momentum going. In the weeks that followed, Darius and Claire continued to foster connections within the community. They established follow-up meetings to discuss the outcomes of the event and explore ways to implement the ideas generated during the sessions. The response was overwhelmingly positive, and it felt like a movement was beginning to take shape. One evening, as they wrapped up a planning meeting, Claire turned to Darius. You know, I never imagined we would be able to create something like this. It's powerful to see how our community is coming together. Darius nodded, his heart swelling with pride. It's incredible. And the stories we've heard have reinforced how important it is for us to keep pushing for change. We can't let this momentum fade. In the midst of their planning, Darius received a phone call from an unexpected source, his former manager at the hospital, Mrs. Thompson. She wanted to discuss potential collaboration on a new initiative aimed at promoting diversity and inclusion within the workplace. As he listened to her ideas, Darius felt a mix of skepticism and hope. I appreciate your call, Mrs. Thompson, but it's hard for me to forget the past. The experiences I had in that environment were difficult. I understand, Darius, she replied, her voice sincere. But I want to acknowledge that. We can't change the past, but we can work together to create a better future. Your voice is vital in this conversation. Darius took a deep breath, weighing his options. I'll think about it. I want to ensure that any initiative we pursue truly empowers our community and addresses the issues we've been discussing. After hanging up, Darius shared the conversation with Claire. It's a complex situation. Part of me wants to believe in the possibility of change, but another part is hesitant. I get it, Claire said, her brow furrowed. But maybe this could be an opportunity to advocate for the very changes we're trying to promote. If we're involved, we can steer the conversation in the right direction. Darius pondered her words, feeling the weight of the decision. The idea of returning to the hospital setting was daunting, but if he could leverage that experience to advocate for change, it might be worth exploring. As the days turned into weeks, Darius and Claire continued their community initiatives while Darius weighed the opportunity at the hospital. The events they organized were thriving, and the conversations they sparked were echoing throughout the community. One evening, as Darius prepared to leave the community center, he received a message from Angela. Hey, Darius. I just wanted to let you know that I was accepted into a nursing program. I can't believe it. His heart leaped at her news. That's amazing, Angela. You deserve it, and I'm so proud of you. Angela's voice crackled with excitement. Thank you. I wouldn't have had the confidence to apply if it wasn't for the support from the group. You've really helped us find our voices." As he hung up, Darius felt a renewed sense of purpose. Their work was making an impact, individual lives were changing, and the community was beginning to awaken to the importance of these conversations. In that moment, Darius realized that whether he accepted the opportunity at the hospital or not, the change they were fostering was already taking root. The echoes of their shared stories were reverberating throughout the community, creating a symphony of hope, resilience, and determination. Together, they were not just changing narratives, they were rewriting the future. The early spring sun poured through the windows of the community center, casting a warm glow over the gathering. Darius and Claire were hosting a workshop aimed at equipping community members with the tools to advocate for themselves in various settings, whether it be at work, in healthcare, or in educational environments. The atmosphere buzzed with anticipation as participants settled into their seats, eager to learn and engage. Darius opened the session with a heartfelt introduction. "Thank you all for being here today. Our goal is to empower you with knowledge and skills to navigate challenges you may face in your everyday lives. Remember, each of us has a unique story, and together, our voices can create significant change." Claire stepped forward, her enthusiasm infectious. "We're going to cover topics like effective communication, understanding your rights, and strategies for self-advocacy. This is about equipping you to speak up and be heard." As they delved into the first activity, role-playing scenarios, Darius felt a surge of energy in the room. Participants enthusiastically engaged, acting out challenging situations they might encounter in the workplace or healthcare settings. Laughter and encouragement filled the space as they navigated these conversations together. One participant, Lena, raised her hand during a discussion on workplace discrimination. "I've faced this before, and it's so hard to know how to approach it. Sometimes, I feel like I don't even know where to start." Darius nodded, understanding her struggle. "That's a common feeling, Lena. It's important to recognize that you have the right to speak up. We'll practice how to frame your concerns in a constructive way, so you feel more confident addressing these issues when they arise." The workshop continued with various interactive activities, and Darius could see the participants growing more confident as they honed their skills. The atmosphere was electric with possibility, and he couldn't help but feel grateful for the progress they were making together. After a break, Darius facilitated a discussion on the importance of mentorship. Having someone who can guide and support you is invaluable. If we want to bridge the gap between our experiences and the broader system, we need to lift each other up. As the conversation evolved, one of the participants, Marcus, spoke up. "I know how crucial mentorship is. I wouldn't be where I am today without the guidance of my older sister. We need to create more opportunities for mentoring in our community." Claire jumped in, excited. "That's a fantastic idea, Marcus. What if we established a mentorship program, pairing individuals with experience in certain fields with those just starting out? It could create a network of support and encouragement." The idea ignited a flurry of discussion among the attendees. Darius watched as the group brainstormed ways to implement the mentorship program, their faces illuminated with inspiration. It was moments like this that reminded him of the power of community. Together, they could create something impactful. As the workshop wrapped up, Darius felt a sense of fulfillment wash over him. Participants shared their takeaways and expressed gratitude for the opportunity to learn and connect. Darius and Claire exchanged smiles, knowing their efforts were making a difference. Later that evening, Darius received a message from Mrs. Thompson, his former manager. "I appreciate your willingness to meet and discuss the potential collaboration. When are you available to chat?" Taking a deep breath, Darius replied, suggesting a meeting for the following week. Although he felt apprehensive about revisiting the hospital setting, he knew that if he accepted this opportunity, it could enable him to advocate for the changes he and others had been discussing. The day of the meeting arrived, and Darius entered the hospital conference room, memories flooding back. He had spent countless hours in this space, often feeling invisible. Now, however, he was determined to reclaim his narrative. Mrs. Thompson greeted him warmly. "Thank you for coming, Darius. I appreciate your willingness to have this conversation." As they discussed the hospital's new initiative on diversity and inclusion, Darius listened intently, weighing his options. He could feel the tension in the air, a mix of hope and skepticism. Would this really lead to meaningful change, or was it merely a facade? "I want to ensure that this initiative truly serves our community and addresses the systemic issues we've been discussing," Darius said, his voice steady. "It's important that the voices of those affected are at the forefront of this conversation." Mrs. Thompson nodded, acknowledging his concerns. "I completely agree. We want to create a platform where individuals feel empowered to share their experiences and advocate for change. Your insight is invaluable." As the conversation progressed, Darius began to see the potential in this collaboration. He shared his vision for integrating community feedback into the hospital's initiatives, emphasizing the need for ongoing dialogue between healthcare providers and the communities they served. By the end of the meeting, Darius felt a glimmer of hope. Perhaps this opportunity could be a stepping stone toward the change they were striving for. He left the hospital feeling invigorated, ready to embrace the possibilities ahead. In the following weeks, Darius worked closely with Claire to finalize the mentorship program. They reached out to community leaders and professionals willing to volunteer their time and expertise. As they established the framework, excitement bubbled within the community. During one of their planning sessions, Claire remarked, "We're building something amazing here. This program has the potential to transform lives, bridging gaps that have long existed." Darius nodded, feeling the weight of their responsibility. "It's not just about mentorship, it's about creating a supportive ecosystem where everyone can thrive. We need to ensure that our program reflects the diversity of experiences within our community." The mentorship program launched with a vibrant kickoff event, drawing attendees from all backgrounds. Darius and Claire welcomed participants, introducing mentors and outlining the program's goals. As the room filled with eager faces, Darius felt a surge of hope. They were fostering connections that could lead to meaningful change. As the event progressed, Darius noticed Marcus engaging with potential ments, sharing his journey and encouraging others to pursue their dreams. Darius couldn't help but feel a sense of pride. This was the ripple effect they had envisioned, a community uplifting one another. In the weeks that followed, stories of transformation began to surface. Participants shared their experiences of gaining confidence in job interviews, pursuing educational opportunities, and navigating challenges in their careers. The mentorship program was creating a tangible impact, and Darius felt a sense of fulfillment in knowing they were making a difference. One evening, while reviewing feedback from the program, Darius received a text from Lena. "I just landed an interview for my dream job. Thank you for everything. Your support has made all the difference." His heart swelled with joy as he replied, "That's incredible, Lena. I'm so proud of you. Just remember to showcase your unique experiences, you have so much to offer." As the weeks turned into months, Darius and Claire continued to build on the momentum they had created. The community center became a hub of activity, filled with workshops, discussions, and support groups. Each gathering further solidified the connections they had fostered. Darius also began to feel more comfortable with the idea of collaborating with the hospital. They planned a community forum where hospital representatives and community members could openly discuss healthcare access and equity. It was a bold move, but he felt ready to advocate for change in a system that had once felt overwhelming. As the forum date approached, Darius prepared his remarks, determined to convey the importance of community voices in shaping healthcare policies. On the day of the event, he stood before the crowd, his heart racing. "Thank you all for being here today," he began, his voice steady. "We're here to have a candid conversation about our experiences with the healthcare system. It's time to bridge the gap between providers and the community. We must work together to ensure that everyone has access to quality care." As he spoke, Darius could feel the weight of his words resonating with the audience. Stories were shared, questions were raised, and solutions were discussed. The atmosphere was charged with a sense of possibility, and Darius felt a shift in the room, a collective acknowledgement that change was not only necessary but achievable. At the end of the forum, Darius stepped down from the podium, feeling a profound sense of accomplishment. He had taken a step into the unknown, advocating for his community in a way he never thought possible. The gap was beginning to close, one conversation at a time. As he exited the venue, Claire caught up with him, a broad smile on her face. "You did it, Darius. That was amazing." "Thanks, Claire. It felt good to share our experiences," he replied, still buzzing from the energy of the forum. "I think we're making real progress." Over the next few months, Darius continued to build bridges between the hospital and the community. The dialogues that emerged were powerful and transformative. He saw firsthand how collective action could challenge systemic barriers and inspire change. One evening, as Darius reflected on their journey, he received another message from Lena. "I got the job. Thank you so much for believing in me. I'm excited to start this new chapter." Tears of joy filled Darius's eyes as he replied, "You did this, Lena. You believed in yourself, and that's what matters most. I'm so proud of you." In that moment, Darius understood the true power of connection, advocacy, and community. Together, they were creating ripples of change that would echo for generations to come. The journey was far from over, but with each step, they were bridging the gap between struggles and triumphs, hope and resilience. The summer sun cast a golden hue over the community center as Darius prepared for the annual community celebration. The event was designed to showcase the progress made throughout the year, particularly the impact of the mentorship program and the ongoing collaboration with the hospital. Darius felt a mix of excitement and nervousness as he organized the final details. "Today is about celebrating our achievements and looking toward the future," Claire said as they arranged tables adorned with vibrant decorations. "We've come so far, and I can't wait to see everyone's faces when they hear the success stories." Darius nodded, grateful for Claire's unwavering support. "I just hope we can inspire more people to join our efforts. There's still so much work to do." As the event began, families, friends, and community members gathered in the center, filling the space with laughter and chatter. Darius and Claire welcomed guests and shared stories of transformation, highlighting the experiences of individuals who had thrived through the mentorship program. The energy in the room was palpable, with a shared sense of pride and hope. Darius took the stage, his heart racing with anticipation. "Thank you all for being here today to celebrate our community's achievements. This journey has been about empowerment, connection, and change. Together, we've forged a path toward a brighter future." As he spoke, Darius reflected on the impact of their efforts. Participants shared their successes, from new job placements to scholarships earned. Each story resonated with the audience, a testament to the power of community and resilience. Midway through the event, Darius noticed a familiar face in the crowd, Mrs. Thompson, his former manager from the hospital. She had come to support the initiatives they had discussed during their earlier meetings. Darius felt a wave of gratitude wash over him, recognizing the importance of bridging gaps not just in the community but also within institutions. After the speeches, Claire approached Darius, her eyes sparkling with excitement. "We should invite Mrs. Thompson to share her perspective. It would be great to hear from someone in the hospital about how these initiatives are impacting the system." Darius agreed, and they approached Mrs. Thompson together. "We would love for you to say a few words," Claire said warmly. "Your insights would mean a lot to everyone here." Mrs. Thompson smiled, visibly touched. "I would be honored. Thank you for the opportunity." As she took the stage, the audience listened intently. "I want to commend Darius and Claire for their incredible work in this community. It has inspired me to reconsider how our hospital can better engage with those we serve. Your stories are vital in shaping the future of healthcare. Darius felt a sense of pride swell within him. The acknowledgement of their efforts from someone in a position of authority was a significant step forward. It validated the work they had done and reinforced the idea that change was possible. After the event, as the sun began to set, Darius and Claire took a moment to reflect on the day's accomplishments. "We've created something special here, Darius," Claire said, her voice filled with emotion. "It's more than just a program, it's a movement." Darius nodded, feeling a deep sense of fulfillment. "I never imagined we could impact so many lives. This is just the beginning." In the following weeks, the community continued to thrive. The mentorship program expanded, pairing even more individuals with mentors who could guide them through their journeys. Darius found himself more involved in outreach efforts, connecting with local schools and organizations to promote the program. One day, while visiting a local high school, Darius met a group of students eager to learn about career options and mentorship. "What you're doing is amazing," one student, Maya, said. "I want to help others like me find their way too." Encouraged by Maya's enthusiasm, Darius shared stories of individuals who had benefited from mentorship. "You all have the power to make a difference, just like those who came before you. It's about lifting each other up and creating opportunities." As Darius left the school, he felt hopeful about the next generation. The seeds of change were being planted, and he knew that together, they could cultivate a more inclusive and equitable future. Weeks turned into months, and the community's momentum continued to grow. The collaboration with the hospital began to yield tangible results, with workshops and forums scheduled to address healthcare disparities and enhance access for marginalized groups. However, as Darius immersed himself in this work, he felt a nagging concern: what would happen when he needed to confront his own past experiences in the hospital? Despite the progress made, lingering feelings of doubt crept in. Would he be able to navigate his own history while advocating for change? One evening, after a particularly long day, Darius sat on his balcony, gazing at the stars. Claire joined him, sensing his contemplative mood. "What's on your mind?" she asked gently. "I've been thinking about my time at the hospital. While I'm excited about the changes we're making, I still feel a sense of apprehension. How do I reconcile my past experiences with the advocacy work I'm doing now?" Darius confided. Claire paused, reflecting on his words. "It's okay to feel conflicted, Darius. Your past is a part of your journey, but it doesn't define you. You have the power to shape your narrative, and by sharing your story, you can inspire others to do the same." Darius nodded, feeling comforted by her words. "I know I need to confront my past to move forward, but it's daunting. I don't want it to overshadow the progress we're making." Claire placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "You don't have to do this alone. We can work through it together. Your experiences can be a source of strength, showing others that transformation is possible." With renewed determination, Darius decided to confront his past. He began journaling his experiences, reflecting on the moments that had shaped his perspective on healthcare and race. It was a cathartic process, allowing him to articulate the challenges he had faced while also recognizing the growth he had achieved. As he shared his reflections with Claire, she encouraged him to consider speaking publicly about his journey. "Your story can resonate with so many people, Darius. It's powerful and can inspire others to advocate for themselves." With each passing day, Darius became more comfortable with the idea. He envisioned speaking at local events, sharing his journey in advocating for equity in healthcare. It felt like a way to honor not only his experiences but also the countless individuals who had supported him along the way. Finally, the day arrived for Darius to speak at a local community event focused on healthcare equity. As he prepared backstage, he felt a mix of nerves and excitement. Would people connect with his story? Would it make a difference? As he stepped onto the stage, he looked out at the audience, faces filled with anticipation. "Thank you for allowing me to share my story," he began, his voice steady. I want to talk about my experiences in the healthcare system, both the challenges I faced and the hope I found in community. He spoke candidly about his journey, the obstacles he encountered, and the strength he discovered through mentorship and connection. The audience listened intently, and Darius could see the impact of his words reflected in their expressions. Afterward, a young woman approached him, her eyes shining with gratitude. "Thank you for sharing your story. I felt so alone in my struggles, and hearing you made me realize I'm not alone." Darius felt a surge of emotion as he replied, "You're not alone. We're in this together. Your voice matters, and together, we can create change." As he left the event, Darius felt a profound sense of purpose. He had taken a significant step toward bridging the gap between his past and future, empowering others along the way. In the months that followed, Darius continued to speak at events and engage with the community. His story resonated with many, inspiring individuals to share their experiences and advocate for change. The mentorship program flourished, creating a ripple effect of empowerment and connection. Through it all, Darius realized that the journey was not just about addressing systemic issues but also about fostering a sense of belonging and hope within the community. Together, they were creating a new horizon, one filled with promise, resilience, and the unwavering belief that change was possible. As the seasons changed, the community continued to flourish, transformed by the collective efforts of individuals who believed in the power of connection and advocacy. Darius, Claire, and the many mentors and ments had woven a tapestry of stories, each thread representing a unique journey toward empowerment and hope. Months after Darius's impactful speech, the mentorship program expanded beyond their initial goals. With increased funding and community support, they established partnerships with local businesses and educational institutions, offering scholarships, internships, and job placements for aspiring professionals from marginalized backgrounds. The program became a model for similar initiatives across the state, inspiring communities to replicate their success. Darius felt a deep sense of pride as he stood at the community center during a recent gathering. This time, it was a celebration of the program's accomplishments, a moment to reflect on the lives changed and the future forged. Families mingled, sharing stories of triumph and gratitude, and the atmosphere buzzed with excitement. "Can you believe how far we've come?" Claire said, her eyes shining with joy as she joined Darius at the center of the room. "Look at all these faces, each one tells a story of resilience and growth." Darius smiled, feeling the warmth of community envelop him. "It's incredible. I'm grateful for everyone who has supported us on this journey. It's more than just a program, it's a movement." As the evening progressed, Darius took a moment to reflect on his own journey. He had come so far from the uncertainty he had felt when he first stepped into the mentorship role. Now, he was not only an advocate but a leader, inspiring others to find their voices and make a difference. At the event, a panel discussion featured graduates of the mentorship program who had successfully secured jobs in healthcare, education, and other fields. They shared their experiences, emphasizing the importance of support and representation in their journeys. Darius listened intently, proud of the impact they had collectively made. Later, as the sun began to set, casting a warm glow over the gathering, Darius noticed a familiar figure in the crowd, Mrs. Thompson. She had been a steadfast supporter of their efforts, attending events and championing their cause within the hospital. Darius approached her, gratitude evident in his eyes. "Thank you for being here, Mrs. Thompson. Your support has meant the world to us." She smiled warmly, her voice filled with conviction. "Darius, what you've accomplished is remarkable. You've not only transformed lives but also reshaped how we view community engagement in healthcare. It's a legacy that will endure." As the event drew to a close, Darius stood before the crowd, his heart full. "I want to express my deepest gratitude to everyone here. Each of you plays a vital role in our community's journey. Together, we are proving that change is possible, and our voices matter." The applause that followed echoed through the hall, a chorus of hope and determination. Darius realized that their work was far from over. The fight for equity, representation, and opportunity continued, but they were no longer alone in the struggle. In the months that followed, Darius and Claire focused on sustainability for the mentorship program, ensuring that its impact would be long-lasting. They held workshops, created resources for mentors, and engaged with local policymakers to advocate for systemic changes in education and healthcare. One evening, as they reviewed the program's progress, Darius looked at Claire with a sense of purpose. "I think we should consider expanding our outreach to include mental health resources. It's an essential aspect of well-being that often gets overlooked." Claire nodded, excited by the idea. "Absolutely. Mental health is crucial for our community, especially for those facing challenges in their personal and professional lives. Let's collaborate with local mental health organizations to integrate support into our program." As they brainstormed, Darius felt a renewed sense of purpose. He understood that their journey was not just about individual stories but about fostering a culture of support and resilience within the community. One day, while visiting a local school to speak about their initiative, Darius encountered Maya, the enthusiastic student he had met earlier. "Darius," she exclaimed, rushing up to him. "I've been thinking a lot about mentorship and how I can give back. I want to help others like you helped me." Darius beamed with pride, touched by her passion. "That's fantastic, Maya. Your desire to uplift others speaks volumes. Let's talk about how you can get involved with our program." As they discussed ways for her to contribute, Darius felt a sense of hope for the future. The legacy of mentorship was not just about him or Claire, it was about empowering the next generation to become leaders and advocates in their own right. As the years passed, the mentorship program continued to thrive, becoming a cornerstone of the community. Darius, Claire, and their team worked tirelessly to ensure that their initiatives adapted to the evolving needs of those they served. They remained committed to breaking down barriers and fostering an environment where everyone had the opportunity to succeed. Reflecting on the journey they had undertaken, Darius felt immense gratitude for the experiences that had shaped him. He had learned that true change comes from within and that vulnerability is a source of strength. On the anniversary of the mentorship program, the community gathered once again to celebrate. As Darius took the stage, he looked out at the faces before him, mentors, ments, families, and supporters. He felt an overwhelming sense of love and unity in the room. "Today, we celebrate not just our achievements but the relationships we've built and the futures we've created together," Darius began. "This journey is ongoing, and together, we will continue to rise, advocate for change, and inspire hope in one another." The crowd erupted in applause, a powerful affirmation of the community they had built. Darius knew that this was just the beginning of a lasting legacy, one that would echo through generations to come. As the evening came to a close, Darius stepped down from the stage, his heart full. He was ready for whatever challenges lay ahead, knowing that together, they would create a future filled with possibility, compassion, and unity.